Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Ask Rob and Rob. Yes, you ask the questions, and yes, we give you the answers. Every single Tuesday we turn up with our microphones, eagerly look forward to see what questions you have in for us, and we answer away. And this week is absolutely no different, because people have got in touch, Rob, and they've left us messages.
Yes, they have. And if you would like to follow in their esteemed footsteps, all you need to do is give us a call on 013 808 00035. That's 013 808 00035. Or alternatively, leave us a message from your computer by going to thepropertyhub.net/ask. So that's what John's done. Let's have a listen to John's question.
Hi, Rob and Rob. John from South Manchester here. Doing a great job. Really enjoy the property podcast, especially the Ask Rob and Rob section on a Tuesday. Just wanted to ask a quick question really in relation to purchases with tenants in situ. I've been given some good and bad advice about that, to be honest. Some people say, yeah, they would. Some people say they wouldn't get involved with a property that's got a tenant in situ. Just wondered what your thoughts were. Look forward to hearing your response.
Well, thank you, John. I can't promise whether this is going to be some of that good or bad advice. I'll let you decide. But you'll get advice nevertheless. So first, I'd like to start off with a lesson. Get something off my chest if you'd allow me. Well, you're listening, so I guess we'll go there. Buying a property with a tenant, I think, deserves some attention. Because yes, there are things you need to check, and I'll let Mr. D cover some of those. But also, I think there's a real lesson here that is often missed. And I've found that some people actually will buy properties based on the tenant that property has. Now, I know some people may be taken aback by that, but it's true. A prime example will be at RMP property. When we've got a list of properties that people are reserving, sometimes the properties come with tenants, sometimes they're new builds. But the ones, when we do a deal that comes with tenants, people will sometimes try and get the plots and push to get the plots with the longest current tenancy. And really, that's pretty poor decision. Because one, that tenant might be a bad tenant. You don't know that at this point if you haven't done any research and you're just basing it on how long they've been. So you could be looking yourself into a nightmare tenant. But also, tenants come and go, and properties for the long term. So even if you do select a great tenant now, what you're better off doing is picking a property that is the best property investment, not a property with the best tenant, because the tenant at some point will probably leave. So a quick lesson there, because I wouldn't really think I needed to give that one out, but I've seen it happen time and time again that I think it's worth pointing out. And I'd hate to think that people are out there looking at properties and going, oh, well, it's got a tenant in there, it's been in there for ages. It's not my ideal property, but it's got a good tenant, so let's buy it. Want to make sure that that doesn't happen, so I'll address it here now. But Rob, if you are going to buy a property with a tenant, and the property's a good investment, buying with a tenant can have its upsides, but there are things to look out for.
Yeah, there are definite upsides. I'm really surprised to hear that story of yours, but I'm also surprised when I hear people say, oh, I'd never buy a property with a tenant in, because, I don't know, it's just one of those things, a bit like houses and flats, where people can sometimes have a very firm thing about it. But I think it can be great because you get paid from day one. So you don't have that sort of void at the beginning while you find your first tenant and get the property ready. And also, you've kind of validated that it rents and what it rents for. It might be the tenant's been in there for ages on a low rent, but it does take some uncertainty out of your numbers in your decision making. So I'm a fan. I think buying with tenants can be a great move. The thing to watch out for is that your solicitor won't necessarily ask all the right questions for you. So solicitors have like a standard list of documents that they request in the course of the transaction, and they won't necessarily think to ask whether the property is tenanted and add all these questions to the list. So you need to be pushing your solicitor to make sure that they get a copy of the tenancy agreement, the AST, that they get confirmation of where the deposit is held and that it's being held in an approved scheme. And also, ideally, though this won't always be possible, a rent statement showing that the tenant is up to date and showing the history of their rent payments. If you're armed with all that information, then you can be pretty confident. People get into trouble when they take on a property without any of this, and then it's suddenly like, oh, well, the tenant's massively in arrears, they've got no intention of paying, they never paid a deposit in the first place, so now I can't evict them properly, and all this kind of thing. So I guess that's what puts people off sometimes. There are these kind of extra complications. but they should all be sorted out in the legal process as long as you know to ask. And then that allows you to have the upsides that I talked about earlier, namely the fact that you start getting paid from day one. So good advice, bad advice, you decide. But as you quite rightly say, Rob, it shouldn't be a core part of your decision making because tenants are temporary and properties are for the long term.
They certainly are, Rob. They certainly are. Right. Next question, please. Let's hear it.
Hey, Rob. As always, thanks for the great podcasts and the constant great information you're always putting out. A quick question. So I have just turned 22 and I plan in exactly 5 years from January to start first off flipping some properties in order to increase my capital and then exchange some flips for rents until eventually I'm just buying rents and become self-sustained. I'm currently saving €1,000 a month and living in Germany, but I want to invest in the north of the UK, so Liverpool, Manchester, Chester area. My question is, how should I prepare for this? For example, I also don't have a credit card, so I'll need to get a credit card. Should I get a British credit card or a German credit card? Do the banks look at my credit rating from Germany in the UK? And furthermore, how else should I prepare for these 5 years? Obviously, listening to the podcast is a great start, but are there other, things that I can get prepared for right now? Thanks again, and hope to hear from you soon.
Okay, good question, and good on you for being interested in property at such a young age and committing to having a plan in place. It sounds like it's not something that you can start with right now, but you know when you will be able to start. You've planned that in and you want to know how to make the best use of that time to set yourself up. So you're doing all the right things already. In terms of where you want to be building your credit history, it sounds, just going by your accent here, like you are British. And so because you're British and you're going to be buying property in the UK, you're going to be needing a mortgage or finance of some description from a UK lender. Therefore, it's your British credit history that you want to be building up. So getting finance as an expat is not the easiest. Maybe it will have changed in 5 years, who knows? But nevertheless, it's your British footprint that they'll be looking at. You mentioned flips as your strategy. So if you're looking for bridging finance for that, the fact that you're overseas, again, will eliminate some lenders, but actually not so many as with mortgages. So with a good record in the UK, you should be able to get finance along those lines as well. The question really, Rob, is given 5 years, how would you prepare for a successful, glittering property investment career?
I think with any strategy, it's always start with the end in mind. So you've not given your end goal here, and that's okay. But that's what I'd start with. I'd be looking at, okay, so in 5 years' time, what have I achieved? What is the end goal? And then start to work back from that. So if it turns out flips is the way to go to get started, then great. I will throw this in. It's by no means impossible, but it is certainly going to be very difficult to execute a flip strategy being overseas. People who are very time poor or time poor because they are external to the UK, they are going to find it more difficult to do flips. As I say, not impossible, just more difficult. If you do go down that avenue and you feel it's the best route for you, then you've already started getting clear on the areas you want to do that in. I like the areas, Liverpool, Manchester, Chester, places I've invested in myself. I'm a big fan. But what you need to do now is build your networks in those areas. So I don't know if you can get across the UK frequently or not, but if you can, go to meetup groups in those areas. The Property Hub has meetups in Manchester and Liverpool. You can go to those. There are other meetups as well you can go to and start to build your network. You may want to consider a joint venture for your first one. Again, lots of research should go into that. Anybody you work with, you should research the heck out of them. You want to know that they are legit. They might talk a good game, but are they the real deal? You need to find that out. Loads and loads of research is key if you're going to be remote to this. That's where your time should be going, because you're not going to be able to put flyers through doors and source deals yourself because you're in Germany. So instead, your time should be invested into research and planning. If you do that, you've got a chance. As I say, slightly hard to do, but not impossible.
So there you go. 5 years to build up that network, read everything you can get your hands on, and of course, keep on listening to the Property Podcast. Imagine all the questions we'll have answered on Ask Rob and Rob in 5 years. Surely that'll be cover everything you could ever conceivably want to know, as long as you keep the questions coming at least.
Yeah, we're going to be getting pretty niche in 5 years, like what's the best colour front door for tenants? But for now, the questions are still high quality, so keep them coming.
Yes, they are. So thank you for your questions this week. Couple of really, really good ones. I'm sure we'll have a couple of good ones next week as well, when we're back with another episode of Ask Rob and Rob. And in the interim, on Thursday, of course, it can only mean one thing. It's the Property Podcast. So until we see you for that, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.